The day off. It's finally here.
Slept well?
Very well. Clocks went back the night. Woke up an hour earlier, and I think I was up at 4:30. I had my first tin of rice pudding, so I've had 2. Savage. Straight out.
Just so used to it.
Oh, I'm gonna flip these arm numbers. That means I can get kicked up here. Save me fumbling around in a car.
Yeah.
140 grams of carbs this morning. I've had my first coffee. We've logistically nailed it, haven't we? I feel like we've got this sussed logistically. I feel like if anyone's nailed logistics today, it's us. Process driven. Put the car in a great spot at the bottom of the climb. Climbs up there somewhere. Whoa! Whoa, nearly.
Right, good luck, mate. See you at the top.
Yeah, see you in a bit. Bike's already there. I can get kitted up here, nice and warm, dry, and I'll just cycle myself up for 3 minutes of whatever I can sustain. It's hard to believe, really, that like it is the day. Well, it's hard to believe. I'm very hyped, but it's just hard to believe it.
Within 3 hours.
Yeah, well, in 3 hours we'll be done.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I'm raring to go now. I just want to get on the start line, like empty the tank, and like.
Does your warm up change in this weather?
It only becomes shorter, I would say. Shorter and slightly more intense. I think it matters anyway because it is a little bit cold, and what I'll do is I'll keep my longs on my top, and I'll just dump them at the start line. You know, they'll get soaking on the side of the road, but doesn't matter. Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, I just wanna see what I could do. It's like a voyage of discovery today, because you know it's like the peak of everything. So you just wanna get up there and do it rather than sit around and wait. But we're in the best place to sit around and wait. I'd rather be here than sat in a car, listening to a radio, tuning in and out with the with the dodgy signal. But yeah, excited. I won't be able to take it in until probably tonight, because
you see photos.
The messages and everything. Like, you don't realise how many people have like bought into it or followed along until you get to the day or the day before, and people are just like, you know, good luck, rooting for you tomorrow, you know, bring it home to Wales, and it's like, some of you aren't even Welsh. But like, I just feel like a couple of years ago when I wasn't doing this, I had a very small proportion of support, and now it just feels like every man and his dog, every man, woman and dog is supporting me, and it feels like a massive team effort. No pressure. That's all I have to say about that.
He says that instead of cut.
That's enough of that. And Tom Hanks is just like, he's like the most savage director he's worked at, because you don't know if he's like happy.
Yeah.
Because Clint Eastwood just shows no emotion, does he? That's brilliant. Yeah. That's enough of that.
What is your confidence level for tomorrow?
I don't feel ahead of tomorrow's race. I don't feel as nervous or as if I have any pressure, or as much pressure as I did in 2019. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself because I knew it suited me. I knew I'd come off the back of the Tour of Britain. I had great road form, and I knew that like equipment matters. We always talk about hill climbing and weight and power to weight. Equipment matters, weight matters. At the end of the day, it's a time trial uphill, and the fastest average speed goes to the person who wins. I knew that it's not necessarily a case of like over the longer ones you can get away with like your equipment being a kilo or two heavier than everybody else's because you've got the engine to back it up. The shorter ones, the steeper ones, Winnats Pass, you have to be on par with everybody else equipment wise, so that you can, in effect, not give yourself a handicap of, you know, as soon as you get on that start line, you know you've got to accelerate 1 to 2 kilos of weight more than everybody else. But saying that, I feel like the build up and everything and documenting it, it's taken like not so much the pressure off, but it just doesn't feel like it's me anymore. Like I said to you like the other day about like it's not, when I feel like lots of people are involved, I feel like not that we share the stress or the build up. Well, we do share the build up because, you know, when I'm on that start line tomorrow, I know people are going to be sat at home on their sofas looking at the clock and they'll be like, Ed's about to start his run on Winnats. But the way people are involved, it's not like a me thing. It just used to be like myself and Charlie. It just used to be 2 of us. Now there's like 5 of us here. But there's also like people on the climb tomorrow who are part of the backpedal community, and it's like there's far more of us now.
2019 was a solo sport, and 2021 is a team sport.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, people aren't looking at me as much for this nationals, but
how does that make you feel when you're sort of out of the top 3 or 4? Oh, you got to watch this person, and all the comments on social media.
The whole kind of prediction thing for nationals always gets me a little bit because I don't quite understand. I suppose it's the same in any sports. You just go off of trends, and those that are winning or those that are performing, well, yeah, you back them. But I think like Nationals Day, anything can happen. You can pull the effort out of the bag that most people would have said, oh, he's only capable of 8.3 for 3 minutes, and all of a sudden he comes up with 8.7, and it's nothing unusual. Well, it is actually. You know, if people follow my YouTube channel, they realise it's not unusual. It happens at all levels of elite sport, where people have put time and effort into preparation, and it all goes down to one day. You can be capable of doing something. So I think it's not so much like pressure off me because I'm not labelled as one of the favourites. I think it's more a case of you shouldn't point at anyone who's a favourite because nobody is. It's almost like the first race of the season where it doesn't matter how many races you've won, it doesn't matter how many times you've been undefeated, you could lose tomorrow. Because the irony is, the more successful you are, potentially the more complacent you come. But again, anything can happen on Nationals Day.
Wow. My FTP is 304. Wow, it's the lowest it's ever been in my life. The lowest it's ever been in my life. Thank you for watching. I'm standing up because I'm getting everything out, guys. Don't teach me to suck eggs. You can dislike the video if you want, I don't care. If you want to see how it's done tomorrow, you can tune in for the 20-minute test. A lot of you are tuning out already. Let me tell you something.
Going back to January this year, your FTP was an all-time, not an all-time low, but it was normal.
I had a normal FTP.
Yeah.
Funny enough, it was technically an all-time low. I'd never recorded an FTP lower than what it was January this year. I think the lowest I'd ever recorded in 2013 when I first had a power meter was 313 watts, and I think I did 305. A week later I added 7 watts. Yes! 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 And people started to say, he's adding 7 watts on 1 watt every day on his comeback, but no, it didn't quite work. Although it did take a while. I think it was probably May or June where I think I started to feel like I was back to, you know, my old self. My recovery from, for people who don't know, when I came down with the virus in November, December, I was very, I guess you can call it very professional in the way I dealt with it. I'm not the type of person to train through a cold, so there was no way I was the type of person to train through, you know, the virus, but I certainly was worried about like what shape I'd be in come January. When I did test, I was kind of half disappointed, half I can get this back.
Let me tell you something. It's going to be so cool trying to get back to full fitness and doing 7 watt per kilo for 20 minutes. I'm going to throw that in now because there's so many of you who are new here listening. That's right, you better subscribe because I'm doing 7 watt per kilo for 20 minutes this year.
But it's a long way to go from potentially I was at 385 watt FDP in October, and then come January I was at 305. You know, most people in the community would have dropped me if we were to do any sort of intensity back then. But yeah, slowly and steady built up, and then I'd say it's been a progression the whole time to now, really. It's funny, it seems like such a long time ago, and that's something that a lot of people forget. Like, it can take a long time to build back, but actually it's not that long at all. Obviously people say like a break does you really good. A part of you always thinks like if it wasn't for that then I'd be even stronger now, but there's all these other factors like your mindset and things like that. So, you know, I was chomping at the bit come January to get going, but the temptation was to do too much too soon. Not that anything was happening anyway until, you know, middle of the year. Just so happened that I had a bunch of long time trials that I entered in like May and June, so they just really helped that stepping stone the whole time. Like what I'm doing now is the equivalent of what the best in the country are doing. So I can't see me being any stronger, you know, if I'd not, you know, came down with the virus and subsequently kept on training. Well, not kept on training, but maybe still taking a break, but not, because thing is, you could take a break if you're ill. So if you're ill and you take a week off, technically you aren't taking a week off the bike because your body's still fighting something. It's still inflammation. So you'd almost have to add another week onto it. And that's kind of what I did with the virus. Not only did I take the time off when I had it, I took the time off just before it and just after it, just to make sure that I'd actually fully recovered. What do they say? Discipline equals freedom. Who wrote that book? Well, you often see that with the most successful people. The discipline to train, discipline particularly the last 2 months to like achieve and maintain race weight or hill climbing weight. Just see it through when, you know, you have that inevitable bad day or bad race, which, yeah, I think a couple of weeks ago at the rake, people thought I did have a bad day. I came 14th. It's very rare that I finish outside the top 10. It's rare to finish outside the top 3. And yeah, there were some confused faces, and I had to explain basically that I rode out of my skin and I did an all-time power PB, so I couldn't have asked for more. And the difference between finishing 14th and finishing 3rd was 9 seconds. That's going to be the same on Winnats. So to me it was one of my best rides.
I'm actually like really happy with my ride. Position wise, I think I finished about 15th.
If I had a limited budget, there's always things you can optimize. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was thinking about, like, you know, motorhome. I was thinking about, you know, you say training camps probably don't necessarily matter so much in the British summer, but definitely in the winter. Even if you can escape for 10 days, because you can pretty much ride for 8 or 9 of those 10 days. I'm at the peak of my physical condition, and there's nothing else I can do with that unless, you know, people say, oh, you should go to altitude, or you should get altitude tent, or, you know, these small things that make like 0.5% difference. I've always been the type of person to like say, well, the 0.5% differences matter, but you need to do the 5% things that actually make the biggest difference as well as you possibly can. You know, it's the boring stuff: eat, sleep, hydrate, train, and make sure that it's fun and sustainable. I know I speak to a lot of the riders who are at the top level in the UK, hill climbing, and they always say, you know, they either try to make the best out of what they've got, or what can they find on a bargain, and then try and build like a Frankenstein bike. You know, you see a lot of like the bull bars. I don't see many now of like the fixed wheel or single speed, but you have to have one brake if you're on fixed wheel. But if you're on a geared bike like myself, you have to have 2 working brakes. I know a lot of people say when you take the brakes off you're going uphill, but it is technically in the rules, just like having your rear light is in the rules, but you don't have to wear a helmet. Wheels make probably the second biggest difference. Biggest difference obviously comes from the skeleton of the bike, which is the frame set. The lighter that is, well, you're off to the best start. The bike I'm racing on for the Nationals is actually not the bike I was supposed to ride. It was loaned to me because the bike that I bought a couple of years ago, I crashed on. So funny we talk about my FTP drop. I then crashed and wrote off my bike and scarred my chin, saved the rest of my face. But yeah, that was like May time or something, and then that was like the lightest frame set, you know, that the manufacturer made. So with all the issues in the bike industry this year, the supply issues, I got loaned an X-Team bike. It wasn't like the equivalent of what I was riding. So the X-Team bike had a couple of scuffs on it, as you'd imagine, and you know, it served me well. I've won hill climbs on it. You can actually buy it on eBay for 600 quid at the minute. And I think you don't have to spend a ton of money, but again, if you're racing at the very top, then if you're gonna put yourself through all that discipline, then the bike needs to be put through the same sort of treatment, really. And then you talk about tyres, and all these things can be optimised, and they all change depending on the climb, obviously. Tyre pressures, weather conditions. I might even think about going down wind tunnel route. I've done time trials on my road bike, the same bike that I'm using this weekend, and I've placed in the top 15 in 50-mile actual open time trials, but on my road bike, beating people on full time trial setups. Part of that comes down to like my road racing background, but I think part of it comes down to like just my build, my narrow shoulders and everything else. It has its place in hill climbing, especially going over the longer climbs, which I intend to do next year with travel and stuff, is try and get over to Sackaloper again.
And that's the big one for next year?
I've always said, you know, Sackaloper is like my perfect climb. But there's been those other events, you know, the Taiwan KOM, you know, in Marmot, Haute Route. I definitely want to get back to road racing, the ones that I can pick and choose now, rather than somebody tell me you're racing that. You know, pack your bags.
The weather, does it bother you tomorrow?
There's lots of talk about the weather. The region that we're in, the kind of the Hope Valley region, definitely a place where I don't think weather forecasts can be entirely trusted, just because of, as you can imagine, all the peaks and the valleys around here. Very much like Wales, I suppose. It's affected, the weather's affected greatly by the area. I think it's no secret I want the climb to be longer, but obviously the climb can't grow longer than 890 meters, but it can in time if there's a headwind. There's like a 20 mile an hour wind forecast tomorrow, well 15-20 mile an hour, but there's strong gusts forecast